I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Homeschooling can be really hard, and one of the hardest things I've encountered during homeschooling, and a lot of people will probably tell you the same thing, it's not your kids' attitudes, it's not affording it, it's not dealing with negative comments from people, it's homeschooling with little kids. Yes, sometimes the hardest part of homeschooling isn't even the kids you're actually homeschooling, it's the other kids you're not homeschooling that you're trying to keep happy and give attention to while still trying to focus on the kids that actually are school age that you're trying to homeschool. And in today's video, I have 5 different ideas for making this a little bit easier homeschooling with littles that I'm going to share with you today. So story time. I have been homeschooling now for 4 years officially. I think we're heading into our 5th year, and I've also done daycare in my home for over 5 years, and I have a lot of experience with little kids. But believe it or not, the hardest part by far for homeschooling for me has been homeschooling with at least 1 little kid, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 little kids, and I've also done homeschooling with other people's little kids as well. And I have found that to be the hardest part so far of homeschooling. And if I'm being totally honest and transparent, there was at least a good year in there where I just thought I was losing my mind with my youngest daughter. She was great all other times of day. She wasn't a kid that had a lot of meltdowns. She was pretty easygoing, definitely a lot of energy, but during homeschool, it was like I had a completely different kid. She became super strong-willed. She wanted to try to do everything she could to get my attention. She would color on furniture. She would throw things on the floor that I had given her. And any other time of the day, she wouldn't do that. And it was just like, what is happening to my child? And during that time, I also was going through a lot personally with my dad in the hospital, and I just mentally was not doing great. And so what I could have just kind of brushed off or, you know, done different things to try to at least get through the homeschooling day or put on the TV, I now had very little emotional stamina to get through this hard time. And so I couldn't just wait for her to outgrow this because she was only like 2 at the time. And it would be a few years before she had, you know, the skills and the words to tell me, I need your attention. Instead, she was using her behavior to show me that. And no matter what I was trying, it just wasn't working. And honestly, many days I wasn't trying a whole lot other than just trying to overpower her will, which when I had no patience left because I was dealing emotionally with a lot in our family, I had very little to give to her, and I didn't want to ruin our relationship. And so during that time, instead of trying to figure out how to be better at being reactive to my daughter, I decided, okay, I don't have a lot of emotional bandwidth right now, but I want to keep homeschooling. It's a great thing for our family. It's great for my older kids to have something to do when their grandpa is in the hospital and we're all not doing so well. And so I had to get proactive. And so I started implementing different things that I knew worked with little kids, but when you're in the thick of motherhood and homeschooling, you don't always have all of the time to like sit down and reflect on, okay, what will work well with kids, or read a bunch of books and try to implement it. So I just slowed down, started implementing different things that really started to work for us. It wasn't perfect. And then when I added my secret weapon, that's when things really changed. So make sure you watch till the end to find out what that secret weapon was. But these are 5 of my favorite tips that really helped me get my youngest daughter to get the attention she wanted and craved without trying to get it in negative ways, and really revolutionized the hardest part of homeschooling, which was homeschooling with little kids. So my very first tip, and one that made a huge difference and really set us off on a path of progress with my youngest daughter when it comes to homeschooling and filling their cup, is spending one-on-one time together. This does not have to be an hour, hours every day. This can be 5 to 10 minutes with your child. And I recommend, if you have littles, do this at the start of your homeschool day or right before your homeschool time when you want them to be really focused. Fill up their cup before that time. So I'm sitting here because this is where I would go with my youngest daughter right before homeschool time. I'd send my 2 older girls to go do some independent work like typing or spelling or copy work, handwriting, in the dining room or in our homeschool room when we were doing homeschool there. And then I would sit here and have my youngest daughter pick out a book and book or two, and we would read a couple books here together or on the couch, all cuddled up. I made sure to really like give her physical touch, give her my full focus, cuddle, tickle, all of those things, and just really listen to her and be present with her. And we would read those books. I'd also throw in an alphabet book. My favorite book is Alpha Block for teaching letters to kids, and we would just read that every day, and she learned all her letters in the process too, so it's a win-win. And that time, just filling up her cup, letting her know this is the time when I'm completely focused on you, it just was such a special thing. And I would definitely recommend not withholding this time if they are being naughty and making bad decisions during homeschool time. Don't take this time away. You actually want to double down on that, because chances are if they're acting out during that time, it's because they're trying to connect with you and they don't have the word to say, Mom, I really want to connect with you. So they'll do it in negative ways. So this may take a while, but just having that connection time, and maybe it's not reading books, maybe it's playing a game, maybe it's just cuddling. Maybe you wear them while you're making breakfast and just let them help in some way with breakfast. Something that will fill their cup, that works well for that child, that you can do every day, that will fill up their attention piggy bank that's in their body that they just need. They need that attention. And so if you fill it up, then they're not going to be trying to pull from it during your homeschool time when you're trying to focus. My next tip, and many of the tips I have actually have a lot more to do with you or the mom or the dad, and less to do with the actual child. And so this tip is all about your mindset. And I encourage you to really work on your mindset when it comes to your little kids. It is so easy, especially for us homeschooling moms, when we are teacher and mom all day long, 24/7, very little time for anything else. And if you work on top of that in some way, it can be a lot. And so it's very easy to be like, this is what we have to get done today. And if anybody kind of makes that difficult for us, it's very easy to get resentful or angry or bitter about that. And that can become kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if we go into the day thinking this day's gonna suck, I'm gonna have a bad time, my kid's gonna act up, well, of course it's gonna happen, and then we're gonna feel bitter and like, well, I knew this was gonna happen, they're gonna be like this again. It's easy to see our kid more as a challenge than this precious soul that we're so lucky to spend our day with. And when you go into it with that negative mindset, you're gonna get more of that. On the flip side, if we try to like self-correct and go to the complete other extreme and go, this is gonna be a great day, I'm gonna have a great mood, my kid's gonna act well, and it's all gonna go really well. That's not realistic. And so if our child is being a child and having a hard time at the start of the day, it's easy to go, oh, they already ruined my day and now nothing good is gonna happen. And it's easy to just let that get us down. Instead, what I recommend is having a clear picture of what likely is going to happen to you in your day, and being positive, but like realistically positive. So instead, when I change my mindset, I've tried both of those extremes, didn't go very well. So instead, when I went into my day thinking, these are likely the things that are gonna happen. My kid might be really upset when they wake up, which is a common thing for all of my girls. At some point, mornings just became really hard, and so that might be a challenge. So if I go into that knowing that, I can kind of prepare myself and have some options of what I might do. I might let them calm down. I might give them more choices, let them do more things on their own, slow down, things like that. If there's other times of the day that might be difficult, I prepare myself. And then I also prepare myself that something may happen that I don't expect. That's probably gonna be easily something that might trigger me to be upset. And so going into it knowing that, but also saying, I'm going to choose to not let that get to me and stay positive. It's kind of a blending of both of those things. You go into it knowing that it might be hard, but you have some ideas of how you might handle it, and you're going to choose to stay positive. And also going into it knowing if I react poorly, I have permission to give myself grace to apologize to my children. And honestly, that's a great learning experience for all of you and for them to see us mess up and apologize. So not having a mindset that's super negative or super positive, but somewhere in the middle, realistically positive, and kind of pre-planning how you might respond in those situations and being proactive versus reactive can go a huge distance in making progress with homeschooling with littles. Another thing we can do that really has nothing to do with our kids is to figure out what we can do to lighten our load. Often if we are having a hard time with our kids, it is just because we have taken on too much. And so trying to have the bandwidth with our kids that we need just goes out the window because we're using it all on so many different things. Now, in life, sometimes as adults, we just have to do what we have to do, but it's good to kind of pause once in a while and take a look at what we've signed up for, what's on the calendar, what things we are putting too much stress on that maybe can be given up and released, or you can change your expectations with. So for example, if things like meal planning or trying to eat organic or trying to make the sourdough and make your own goldfish crackers and do all of these things, if that's adding a ton to your plate, maybe see how you could streamline that a little bit. Or instead of making healthier crackers, you just buy healthier crackers. Or, you know, these are just examples. Or if cooking is really stressing you out, how could you maybe integrate a meal planning service or a meal prep service? Or if grocery shopping is stressing you out, how could you figure that out? Maybe you don't go into the store, you just do grocery pickup. If cleaning is really stressing you out, how could that be changed to make it more doable for you? Maybe you get your kids more involved. Maybe you hire a cleaner for a while. Maybe you just let go of your expectations of how clean your house should be for a while you're figuring out this harder season of your life trying to homeschool with little kids, especially if you're new to homeschooling, or if you're new to homeschooling with littles. Maybe you had all your kids school age and then you had another baby and they're just gotten to a point where they're getting to be pretty difficult for you. Maybe this is the time where you just kind of pause on certain things, or you look at your calendar and you stop signing up for as much that you're volunteering for or extracurriculars or things like that. Everybody's situation is going to be different, but a good thing to think about is just how could I lighten my load a little bit so I can be more present and be less reactive to my kids because my own cup is a little fuller. Now maybe you're saying, okay, I got my mindset figured out, I lightened my load, I'm spending one-on-one time with them, but like, what's a more practical tip? This is my favorite one. And this may seem simple, but sometimes we have to just voice the simple and start implementing it because we just overlook the simple things because we want, you know, bigger, out there, grander things. That is to implement and take advantage of naps and snacks. I don't know about you, but when I'm well rested and well fed, I do a lot better. And fundamentally, our kids really do a lot better with those two things because they are the most basic of needs that we need: sleep and nutrition. And so if you can find a way to use those to your advantage, that may change so much with homeschooling with littles. For example, snacks. Maybe you're homeschooling during a time when your little is really hungry, or maybe they're not really hungry, but just putting some food in front of them will engage so many different skills and different senses that it will be all you really need to make a huge difference. Eating, especially with little kids, involves smell, it involves taste, it involves touch. It's a sensory experience which they crave and need, and it's teaching fine motor and it's teaching chewing and all these different things. And it can be a great thing to use to your advantage if able and if it works for your family to use during those hard homeschooling times. Now, I'm not saying if you're homeschooling for 3 hours, I wouldn't let them eat for 3 hours, but if there's a time during your homeschool few hours that is the most stressful for you. For us, it was read alouds. That's when my child would be like just trying to get my attention because she knew I could not listen and talk to her and read a book at the same time. And so that's when she would really start to act out. So if I put a snack in front of her, she would be more focused on the snack than trying to get my attention. And so you may do it then. Maybe you're gonna use it when you're trying to do like one-on-one lessons with your children, like math or phonics or whatever it is. Maybe that's when they're really just, you know, getting to the end of their own patience. And so you put a snack down in front of them. And maybe it's snack time for everybody. Or maybe you homeschool during lunch or homeschool during breakfast or supper or whatever, and use that to your advantage that everybody's eating. And so that might be something that works really well for you. Consider that, see how it works. Another thing is to utilize nap time. Now, before you say, my kid doesn't nap, just listen. So even if your little doesn't nap, this might be helpful, but if your little does nap, maybe you're gonna start homeschooling during their nap time, or you're gonna save those harder subjects for their nap time. For us, I use nap time for something different because I work from home, and so I use that time to work on my businesses and all of that kind of stuff. But if I was able to, I definitely would move homeschool to that time. And when my youngest daughter was 1, she was napping in the morning, and so we did most of our homeschool time then. I have a baby now who naps in the morning, and so we do our homeschool time then. And that will buy us some time when he's 1 before he outgrows that morning nap. That will really save us for a while until he becomes too old to be taking a morning nap. But if your child doesn't nap, you can still utilize quiet time. We still do quiet time, even though my now 4.5-year-old is starting to outgrow nap. She plays in her room for a while. My older 2 daughters will play, and they know to be quiet during this time. We will still be having a quiet time long after I have any kids napping in my home. So you can utilize quiet time with your little ones. They're being quiet in their room, maybe playing with something. Obviously, this is going to take time to start if you haven't been doing this before. So start small, do little pockets of time, and grow that over time. But this can be a time when either you use it for your older kids to do some extra work that you just couldn't get to because it's so hard with little kids when you're homeschooling, like art or science experiments or things like that. You could use it for their own independent work. Maybe they're having trouble focusing on that when their younger siblings are around, or maybe you use that for read alouds and stuff like that, so that only the older kids, school-age kids, are with you and your littler ones are resting. And that's so good for them too, to kind of slow down and have that time to just take a breather, relax their bodies a little bit, and this might help them throughout the day even more, just having that time to be quiet and rest, and it's helping your whole family. And for my last tip, my secret weapon, if you stayed to the end of this video. Now, I recently decluttered this cabinet, and it was for a good reason, because I am using all these things for my secret weapon, which is implementing activity bins. I had such success with so many of these tips, plus more with my youngest daughter, but there were still some days where it was like, I just can't get her to leave us alone or like stay quiet during read alouds. It was just still really hard for her. And when I started implementing activity bins, it completely changed. I have now been doing this for about almost 2 school years. And I looked back a couple months ago and was like, I haven't had any struggles with my youngest daughter for a very long time. Plus, we haven't had to use the TV in over a year when doing homeschool, and honestly, yes, she has matured, but implementing the activity bins was like the cherry on top that made all of these other things work together, because it gave her something to do and to look forward to during homeschool time. So what I do is every month at the beginning, I don't do them every month anymore because I don't need to. It's kind of helped her foster that independent play on her own. But every month I do 8 different activity bins. You definitely don't need to do 8. I was sharing them on Instagram, so I wanted to share lots of different ideas and just kind of see how it worked for her. But even 2 to 4 different activity bins every month will make such a difference. And so I put lots of different things. I have some sensory ones. I have some, imaginative ones, brain building ones, fine motor ones. And I honestly would just go into this cabinet or look around our house in our toy rotation bins and put random things together, put them in a bin like this. These are the Bright Room storage boxes from Target, which I can't find links online anymore, but a lot of people are still finding them in store. But I will put some more information about other bins you can try. But basically, I would fill them in these different bins, and they just stay on top of my cabinet, and I pull them down during homeschool time. And my daughter would get so excited seeing me put them together. I would show them to her if she wasn't home or wasn't awake when I was putting them together, and then I would tell her, tomorrow we're going to use these in our homeschool. However, these are the rules. We don't throw them, we don't dump them. We take good care of them. We're not getting out a bunch of different bins during this time. You have to stick with the bin you have for a while. And we're only using these during homeschool time. We now are able to use them any time of day we want, and even my older girls like to use them. But when we were starting, I had very clear boundaries about them so that she would get really excited to use them and know that if she doesn't follow those rules, they will be taken away. And this made such a difference. I absolutely credit this secret weapon with being the one thing that like brought all of the tips together. I started sharing about the bins on Instagram, and honestly, the biggest question I have gotten about homeschooling is, how do you homeschool with little kids? It is so hard. And I sat there and I was just like, I don't know how to answer that question because there's so many different things that I do. Well, I ended up putting together a whole guide, a 68-page guide for you to help you with so many of these tips that I shared in this video, plus so many more practical tips, but also more like that I shared about things we can do as parents on our own side of the equation to make homeschooling easier for our little kids and to kind of save our sanity. And so I put that together, plus 60 different activity ideas and activity bin ideas, plus where to get things for your activity bins inexpensively, what types of things to be looking for, tips for frequently asked questions like, what do I do if my kid keeps dumping the bin out? I put all of that into the 68-page guide to help parents like you homeschool successfully with little kids. I took all of my knowledge from being a childcare provider and my knowledge being a former teacher, and I put it into this, plus my knowledge of 10 years as a mom with very rambunctious, strong-willed daughters and now a son. And this is my guide. If I had a mom friend who was like, I am struggling so much with my little kid, I don't know what to do. If I took her out to coffee and laid out everything that I tried and gave her a bunch of bin ideas that she could try, I put all of that conversation and holding her hand, I put that into this guide. So it's if you were sitting down with me, this is what I would say. And I put that all into the guide to help fellow homeschool moms so they don't have to spend years trying to figure it out like I did and being angry and getting frustrated and just feeling like a bad mom and like, why isn't this working well for me? Why does it look so easy for everyone else? It's not, and we all have our own struggles. We don't just all share all of our struggles all the time. And so I put everything I could possibly put into this guide to make it easier for you. It's called Lessons with Littles, and it is exactly that. It's about sharing how I successfully overcame a lot of the struggles, both internally and externally with my youngest daughter, and it's exactly what I will do again with my son as he gets older and he starts to enter into our homeschool day and have his own challenges, because that's what little kids do. They're trying to figure it all out, and it's our job to guide them. But when you're trying to homeschool older kids, it can be really challenging. So I will put a link to that in the description. But anyway, I just hope this video was helpful, even if you don't look into the guide. I just hope these tips kind of started the ball rolling and can help make your homeschool a little bit more peaceful with those little kids who we cherish so much, but can make homeschooling with older kids very difficult. So thank you so much for watching. Happy homeschooling. I'll see you next time. Bye.